it was an excellent conversation.
How are you talking about your relationship with Donald Trump?
Donald Trump is trolling Canada. Unless you somehow missed it, this week, Trump posted an edited picture of himself standing on a mountaintop next to a Canadian flag. Cue the Canadian media's pearl clutching as they desperately try and understand what this all means. Let me spell it out for you. It's what some of us call a joke. I'm Rachel Parker, and this is Rachel in the Republic. Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Parker. We have so much to dive into today. It's been a very interesting and exciting time in the Canada-US relationship. So as you guys know, we've covered it extensively on this show and elsewhere at True North. The looming threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian products entering the US market continues to hang over Canadians and the Canadian economy, as we have a leader who seems unable to respond to these threats. Well, at least we thought so until Friday night. Suddenly, everyone noticed that the Prime Minister's plane was headed due south. It looked like it was going straight to Florida, and it certainly was. We would soon learn that Justin Trudeau would meet with President-elect Donald Trump on Friday night. Now, if you watch the CBC or listen to the Canadian press, CTV Global News, you would have thought that that meeting went splendidly for the Canadian Prime Minister. The Canadian media hailed Trudeau's praises after meeting with Donald Trump and said the meeting was very productive. Soon, however, cracks began to show in that narrative. To start, Trudeau wasn't invited to stay the night at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's castle-like residence in Palm Beach, Florida. Now, you might not think that's too much of a big deal unless you consider the fact that President-elect Donald Trump always invites his guests to stay the night, and that Mar-a-Lago has 126 rooms. The narrative further began to slip when Trudeau emerged from his hotel room on Saturday morning. We showed that clip at the beginning. We're going to play it again for you guys now. I want you to take a good, hard look at Trudeau's face here.
Prime Minister, was it a productive meeting with President-elect?
It was an excellent conversation.
How are you talking about your relationship with Donald Trump?
Stressed, tired, looking like the world is crumbling around him. Those are all thoughts that came into my mind when I saw that video of the Prime Minister emerging from that elevator. He does not look like someone who is having the best day. And then the final nail in the coffin emerged when the tenacious Peter Doocy of Fox News revealed a little tidbit of the conversation between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President-elect Donald Trump. Take a look.
And tonight we're getting some new details about that Trump-Trudeau dinner from two people who were at the table. We are told that when Trudeau told President-elect Trump that new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy, Trump joked to him that if Canada can't survive without ripping off the U.S. to the tune of $100 billion a year, then maybe Canada should become the 51st state and Trudeau could become its governor.
Yikes. Yikes. I said in my opening statement that Trump was making a joke, which is true. He makes a lot of them, and the mainstream press consistently takes them seriously and gets upset about it, making the jokes all the more funny. But there is another self-evident truth here. Donald Trump doesn't like Justin Trudeau, and he doesn't take him seriously as a leader. And that spells very bad news for Canadians and the Canadian economy amid this looming threat of tariffs. That will happen unless our unserious leader finally starts to take the border crisis seriously. If you still don't believe me that Donald Trump doesn't like Justin Trudeau and doesn't take him seriously, take a look at this next troll Trump posted to his Truth Social account. Now, for those of you who are just listening on the audio version, here we can see a picture of President Trump standing next to a Canadian flag. It is not the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, but I suspect that it was edited to make it look like he was standing in the Rockies. Now, I've explained that this is a joke and that we should laugh at it, but we should also take very seriously the concern that Trump doesn't respect our nation's leader. That is a problem. But this whole saga also brought forward a perhaps predictable and I would say a bit immature response from some on the Canadian right. Following Trump's trolling of Canada, which I admit is funny, and I agree that Justin Trudeau is unfit to lead this country, but I also acknowledge it is a problem that Trump doesn't take Canada seriously, a problem that is inherently because of our unserious leader. Some on the right said that America should invade Canada and make Canada its 51st state. And I have to say that, as some of you who have watched the show consistently over the past number of months know, I love America and I love its principles. I do not agree. Canada should not become a part of the United States. And here's why. Well, to start, Canada and America are uniquely different countries with different cultures. Elsewhere in the world, and sometimes even here in Canada, people like to correlate the two countries and talk about how similar we are. I mean, sure, if you compare Canada to, say, Japan, then America does seem quite like Canada on that level of comparison. But we also are uniquely different when you look at our countries individually. I've spent a lot of time in the States, and obviously, I've lived my whole life in Canada, and I can say for certain that we are deeply different countries. To start, just something simple off the top of my head, Canadians, we are known for our politeness. Now, on the negative side, that can at times extend to unwillingness, an unwillingness to speak our minds and to stand up for ourselves. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Americans are known for their candor. You'll know if you piss off an American because they'll be sure to tell you. Likewise, Canada has also been a country that welcomes immigrants and multiculturalism. Remember, Canadians only recently became frustrated with immigration because of the rising crime and the rising cost of housing and other products in this country. But most Canadians still want to lower immigration for the next few years and then get right back on track with opening our door to the rest of the world once prices have come down and once we've caught up with building homes and schools. Now, I must acknowledge that I personally dislike this about Canada. I think that our immigration numbers are too high. I think that we should put more of an emphasis on assimilation rather than multiculturalism. But most Canadians do not share my sentiment. If you ask most Canadians, they will tell you that Canada is a place of multiculturalism and that they like that about their country. In contrast, America expects their immigrants to assimilate. They opened their borders to the world's poor for a few years, and now they've elected a president who is going to send those people back home. I don't hear the federal conservative leader here in Canada and the likely next prime minister of our country advocating for deportations. America has stronger protections of civil liberties as enshrined in its Constitution. Our Charter of Rights and Freedoms pales in comparison. They also have the right to bear arms, which was created to protect the American people from tyranny. We do not have the right to bear arms in Canada, and many Canadians feel squeamish towards firearms. Again, I should reiterate that these are attitudes that I do not personally share. I wish that we had the right to bear arms enshrined in our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but we don't. Another huge difference that I think extends to the attitudes between our countries is how Canada became a country in the first place. Canada sought to earn its independence over 100 years. We waited until Britain recognized our independence to become a country. And we still recognize the King of England as the Canadian monarch. America certainly does not. As you likely know, America fought for its independence from Britain, a war that spanned over several weeks. And those who were living in America that had loyalty to the crown moved north to what would eventually become Canada. These differences are evident in the attitudes of both nations. I would also say that I personally prefer the decentralization of power. I'm not looking to be under the control of an even bigger federal government. I might currently like who is to be the next president of the United States of America, but there will be other times when I dislike the presidents of the states. And if Canada was a part of the states, that individual would have a heck of a lot of power over millions of people. I should also say that while I may not love all the things about Canada that I've outlined here, like our high immigration numbers, like our emphasis on multiculturalism, I wish that we had the right to bear arms, I do love Canada. I love the childhood I had here, growing up in a small village nestled in the Niagara Escarpment. I love our freshwater lakes, the prairies, the Rockies, and especially the people. the Canadians who drove to Ottawa and to the border to stand up for my freedoms. So to me, America is something to hope for. Should all be lost here. I love Canada, and I always will, but I don't know if Canada loves me anymore. And I won't accused of being a traitor for acknowledging that there might not always be a place for me in my country, because my family has sacrificed a lot to fight for freedom in this country, more than most people, in fact, and we will continue to do so. But if the day ever comes when I'm thrown in jail, as the Liberal government would like to do, there's a bill in the House of Commons right now that's at second reading that threatens to do this very thing. If I'm thrown in jail for saying that a man can't be a woman, or the government wants to take my kids from me because I want to raise them as Christians, or homeschool them, or maybe I don't want to have them vaccinated, then I will have no choice but to leave. And should that day come, I'll be grateful that America exists just as it is, without the politicians and the people who sought to strip so much from people like you and like me. All right, everyone, let me know what you think of today's episode of Rachel and the Republic. I'm especially curious to hear if you think that the Conservative Party and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will undo the damage caused by Justin Trudeau. Yes, I think they'll undo some of it, but will they undo all of it? I think the biggest problem that we have facing our country right now is the high rate of immigration and the fact that Canadians do not want to have children anymore. Curious to hear your thoughts on this subject matter. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, and God bless.